Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougs. Again, I'll keep it broad. It's BYU, the best new addition of the 8 to the Big 12.
If you want, in terms of overall athletic department prowess, I would say so. Here's the thing. BYU's got a very competitive football team right now. Their men's basketball team appears to have taken a step forward after losing their head coach, which is incredible. We'll see how it obviously plays out on the court this winter. But the bigger thing is you look at the other sports, women's soccer, the volleyball program on the women's side of things. They've got so many sports for BYU that are competing at a very, very high level in the Big 12. And we're competing from day one, cross country, track and field, on down the list. It's been really, really fun to watch all this unfold. And there was some question, okay, BYU's been competing at an elite level in the leagues they've been in before they jumped into the Big 12. I was curious to see how all of these sports would compete. There were some I already knew were going to be at a disadvantage, baseball and softball in particular, but there were ones that were competing at a national level. We're talking about a women's soccer team that went to a College Cup final and had a chance to win a national championship. I wondered how they'd stack up on a game in and game out basis. Well, it's fit right in. So yeah, I do think BYU, in terms of an overall athletic department level, they are the most balanced, and I think, yes, the best addition to the league.
Is there any way, before we get into the other 7 and talk even Arizona or Utah or UCF and what they brought to this conference, is there any way to explain how BYU has done what it's done in both basketball last year and football this year?
I think the biggest thing is the fact that BYU needed to have that Power 4 label next to their name. When that happened, BYU had talked for years when they went out and recruited guys both in basketball and football that they were, I use the term Power 5 adjacent, and they were like, hey, we're playing at a Power 5 level schedule, but there were athletes who were like, well, you're not Power 5. You don't have that label next to your name. Well, as soon as they joined the Big 12, all of a sudden, like, no, it's now the Power 4, but we are Power 4 caliber, and we are, remember that. It's changed the recruiting dynamic. Just look at what Kevin Young is doing for BYU on the recruiting front. If he lands AJ DeBonsa, Drake, I'm telling you, that is the biggest recruiting win in BYU sports history, bar none. And people will tell you right now, they're the favorite to land him, which is boggles my mind, because as a guy who, like I said, tracks this team literally on a daily basis, it's just still baffling to me that they can pull that off. But that's just not the only name out there. The best part is BYU football's seeing an uptick in their recruiting. Basketball's recruiting at an elite level. So yeah, it's been the fact that they now have that Power 4 label officially affixed to their name, and it's really helping them get indoors. They would have otherwise been like, that's cute, but we'll look at other options.
See, Jake, I want to agree with you, and I do. But I also want to get a clear point of clarification. Yeah. How did it happen so fast? How do you pull? Because UCF would say the same thing. Yeah. Hey, we're in Orlando. We have the Florida recruiting base. Give us a year or two of Power 5 status. We'll be there. BYU did it instantly. How did it happen so quickly?
Here's the deal. There's a guy I work with in sports radio here in Salt Lake City who says the BYU will always be able to recruit guys they literally have no business recruiting. And it's because of the affiliation BYU has with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it has worldwide exposure, obviously. Yep. And it also, there are guys who are elite level athletes who are members of the faith that wanted to play at an elite level of the sport that they choose, whether it's football or basketball. And when BYU wasn't at that level, they're like, okay, maybe I'll check out Utah instead, or I'll look at USC, etc. Well, now that BYU is competing at that level, they're giving a renewed focus of what BYU can offer to them. And the other thing about it is BYU is invested as well. I will say this about their athletic department. They have put money where their mouth is. And I really appreciate that, because for years, Drake, the whole moniker around BYU was we do more with less. Right. You know what? How about you do more with more? I said that all the time. Well, guess what? They finally, I think, have flipped that mindset. I think that the leadership at the top of the university is sports-minded, and they are investing at an unprecedented level from what I understand, and that's going to pay dividends for BYU in the right now and also on into the future.
If someone argues, hey, Arizona basketball has been so good, or Utah football has won 2 Pac-12 championships, or UCF has been a perennial powerhouse at the mid-level, at the mid-major level in football, then where Cincinnati basketball, you can kind of pick of any of the new teams, they're one thing they're very good at, or Deion Sanders for Colorado. Where does BYU say, hey, without a doubt, we're ahead of that piece of your university?
Well, are you talking like in terms of which one they would opt to point out? I'm just trying to get a point.
Yeah. For Arizona, they would hang their hat on basketball. They would say, we're so good at basketball, we bring that much more to the Big 12 than BYU. And UCF would say recruiting base in Florida. Utah would say football success recently. How does BYU justify being better than the other 7?
The fact that they have a national championship in football and they have literally a fan base that will follow them wherever they go. They bring thousands of people with them wherever they go on the road. Their football tradition for BYU is really unique because for the first 50 years of their football history, it was crap. It was awful. Lavelle Edwards comes in 1972, and then the 52 years since then, a national championship, Heisman Trophy, Doak Walker Awards, Davey O'Brien trophies, conference titles, legendary games across the board, upsetting number 1 teams left, right. And it's a history that is unprecedented in many respects. And BYU, they affix themselves to that. I know that BYU men's basketball is having a really nice run right now with Kevin Young doing what he's doing, but the history suggests that BYU will always point to the tradition of their football and say, we are a football school first and foremost.
Jake, BYU being the best Big 12 edition. In 5 years, will we look ahead and say, not only were they the best Big 12 edition, but they're the strongest athletic department in this conference?
I would hope so, because BYU, like I said, has been investing in this, and they're not going to do it at the expense of overspending because the thing is, the university itself does not lend money to BYU athletics. It is a self-sustaining model. They have to eat what they kill. And that's the thing is BYU is seeing more money pour into their coffers athletically than they've literally ever seen in their history. That is going to allow them to do, as I said, more with more, and that will see them continue to invest in the different areas they feel like they are deficient in. And I'm hopeful that in 5 years, BYU is competing amongst the top of the Big 12 with strategic investment, obviously paying off the way it should. Obviously, it's a crapshoot because it is an investment for a reason, Drake. We all know this. Sometimes investments go belly up, but I do think BYU is smart in how they go about investing that money. And if it goes according to plan, they will be an elite athletic department in the league.
Jake, from Spain to the Philippines to Canada to Mexico to Provo, Utah, there are so many BYU fans worldwide due specifically to that affiliation with the LDS faith. That has been massive in BYU's growth internationally and now in the Big 12, being able to compete at the top level. For you, Jake, where can people who are just listening to you for the first time here on Locked On Big 12 or Locked On Cougs, their first day, find more of your work?
Yeah, so if you want my own thoughts on all things sports, follow me, Jacob C. Hatch. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the handle right there. But Locked On BYU, aka Locked On Cougars, available wherever you get your podcasts, just like Locked On Big 12, also available on YouTube. And the show is also on social media. Locked On Cougars on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter/X. Search us out. Let's chat. Let's have some fun. We also have our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. If you want the inside scoop on all things BYU, join us there. It's a really fun time having one-on-one conversations with Cougar fans. As you mentioned, Drake, literally worldwide. I'm having some conversations with folks in the Philippines and the like. It's really fun to have that as an element.
I love it. That's the beauty of the Locked On Podcast Network, not just BYU, but this entire network being able to connect with fans across the world. This has been and always will be Locked On. Come back tomorrow for even more football as BYU is undefeated and should be in the top 10. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Cougars and Dose Grande.